Welcome back to Blackthornprod. I'm Noah, an indie game developer currently working on my second commercial title, Dashing Fire. I took a small winter break since the last video, but I'm back in town and hungry to bring my ideas and worlds to life. So it has been about 2.5 months since I began the Dashing Fire project, and I thought now would be a great time to make a video summarizing this whole game creation journey so far. This way people who haven't followed every devlog since the beginning of the year are brought back up to speed, and those who have can get a nice chunky overview of my progress since the very beginning. Before starting this odyssey, I wanted to thank Zenva Academy for sponsoring this video. They make top-notch quality game creation content. Take RPG Academy, where you'll learn about the basics of the Unity game engine before building 2D and 3D RPGs with quests, battles, NPCs, enemies, dungeons, and more. Their on-demand video courses are fully authorized by Unity Technologies and come with source code, PDF lesson notes, and offline access. I believe the quality and variety found at Zenva is well worth it, and they're currently offering 50% off your first month to the first 100 people who sign up. Just use the coupon code Blackthornprod and the link in the description. With that said, let's go back to where Dashing Fire was born, to late December 2019, when Christmas was just around the corner and I felt an urge to get into the magical and joyful spirit of the season by creating a small Christmas game. Over the course of 3 days I made Good Vibes. This is a light-hearted, short experience where you control a squishy golden character exploring a colourful, smiling universe. There's no challenge involved, it's just me trying to spread a little bit of positivity and peace in the player for even just a couple seconds. I loved the movement mechanic I'd made for the game. It felt satisfying and fun moving around the world, snapping from one movement spot to another, and I was certain this could be turned into an entire challenging experience. Since finishing the Dreadful Whispers back in September, I'd been making all kinds of little game prototypes, having fun and trying to figure out what would be my next big project. Good Vibes was just another small experiment, and it led to this ugly prototype featuring the same planet-hopping movement mechanic, but in a more challenging environment, with worlds covered in bouncy monsters and orange flames you can plunge into to defend yourself. Good Vibes was transitioning from a casual, short, idle experience into a tough little roguelike, meaning the player could actually lose the game, and planets were randomly generated with obstacles and monsters placed differently in every playthrough. The fire the player can collect turns him orange. This is called the attack state, and he's now ready to destroy monsters and defend himself. However, as soon as he does so, he goes back to being white, where he's vulnerable to the many hazards thrown his way. And so the game becomes a frantic dance of dashing between planets, avoiding enemies, and diving into fire to obliterate the monsters creeping towards you. I pushed on with my ugly prototype artwork, unwilling to spend more time than necessary on it in case the game wasn't even fun or interesting. So I quickly put together 2 boss fights, making use of the player's fun dash mechanic, and played around with a currency he can collect to then spend on healing. After playing my own game rather impulsively and having a lot of fun and new ideas, I figured this was a world I was eager to fully bring to life and complete. So I spent some time improving the visuals. Fireboy was born, planets were polished and given a cool little animation when jumped on, bosses were rendered into more epic battles, and a merchant world was brought to life instead of this static upgrade screen. I posted my first devlog video on the 5th of January, about 2 weeks after completing Good Vibes, making the project official and holding myself accountable so I wouldn't be able to give up on it on the sly. Since then, every 2 weeks or so, I've been updating the community on the progress I make on Dashing Fire, which for a time was called Rising Sun, but that title just didn't feel right to me and was already pretty taken up anyway. I had fun adding lots of new creatures to the game, juicy heads that shoot projectiles at the player, morphing planets that spawn hordes of spiky flying bats, monstrous treasure chests, and more. I think I'll definitely make a cool little bestiary later in development, so the player can browse through the many dangers he's encountered on his journey. There's also fun upgrades he can purchase, from protective shields to speed boosting to cute pets that increase the value of stars collectors. Around the end of January, Dashing Fire featured 3 unique areas. The first is called Fields of Goals. It's a tough little intro to the adventure with a linear line of planets and some basic enemies to dodge and dispatch. Then there's Lush Lands, where planets no longer go up in a straight line, but are scattered around the level in a more exotic fashion, and are teeming with new dangerous inhabitants. And finally there's the Crimson Hollow, where the player must navigate downwards and mustn't stay static for too long because of the spiky haired devils that pop out. After much thought, Tenebrous Sky came to life, the 4th and last area of the game, unique to the other 3 because of how the player can move freely around the level. There's no planets to jump on here, just a wide, dark space riddled with red and blue creatures. These eerie light blue monsters harm the player when he's in his attack state, and are destroyed when he's not. This adds an extra layer of challenge and makes for a very fun and engaging final set of levels. My mind bursting with creative ideas for boss battles, I brought more of these large foes to life during the same time, and all the while trying to implement small tweaks and fixes and suggestions found in the comment sections of my devlog videos. The advice and tips can be really silly or eye-opening, and has certainly helped me see Dashing Fire in a new light from time to time. With that said, around mid-February I set up the game's Steam page. This was to feel like the game was actually a real thing and that I would end up selling it to the world, which is both scary and extremely exciting, but also to start collecting wish lists early, which is an extra nice step to building a passionate little group of players I know will support this project when it finally gets released. So if you're interested in exploring this dashing, planet-filled adventure, simply click that wishlist button, it's so appreciated. Before going on holiday, I began work on the game's final boss encounter, which I won't share because, as I said in the last devlog, I need to keep some things out so you have an extra motivation to play the game. And I also added tons of upgrades so the player is really faced with a wide variety of interesting choices to upgrade his hero in the merchant worlds. Not to mention all these small tweaks and fixes one needs to make when creating a full-fledged game over a couple months, from pause menus and options to locking shortcuts until certain requirements are met, to fixing particles and little sound effects. On an extra exciting note, I have recently been working on an endless mode for the game, where random planets come plummeting down and the player must survive the longest possible. It's early in development, but I think it will turn into a very fun little extra given enough variety and challenge. I'm unsure whether this will be an area found within the classic adventure or a separate mode the player can decide to jump into from the menu, perhaps only unlocked once he beats the game for the first time. Maybe the player can enter this endless level by spending a certain amount of his precious stars, and depending on how long he survives, he'll get a special rewards. Finally, I got the actual game working on Steam. I had set up the store page. It was only right I got to step 2 and was able to download and play Dashing Fire on Steam using Steamworks and this spooky command application. Of course, only I, the developer, can play the game for now, but experiencing my game like this is an exciting breath of fresh air and it really feels like a big step forwards. If you watched my video about getting the Dreadful Whispers to work on Steam, you'll know how much I've struggled back then, but this time it was a breeze. It's awesome when something that was once so hard and daunting becomes easy and empowering, and makes me realize that many struggles I have right now will more than likely be a piece of cake or a peaceful adventure later down the line. Okay, thanks so much for watching. If you want a much more in-depth look at the making of Dashing Fire, then check out all my previous devlogs. And if you really want to learn how to create your own games and worlds, consider checking out Zenva Academy with the coupon code Blackthornprod for 50% off. With that said, thank you to my Patreon supporters, and stay tuned. Dashing Fire is getting closer and closer to completion, and there's so much more to share as I bring this world to life. See you all soon. Cheers.